Bueno, con luz es otra cosa. Bueno, buenos días, buenas tardes. Quiero darle la bienvenida a las colegas, los colegas de la Presidencia, amigas, amigos, amigas y amigos, todos los que han venido participando en todas las reuniones de este retiro de CGLU. Para mí, creo que para todos nosotros es un placer estar juntos en una semana que ha estado llena de intercambios, de ideas, de compromisos y de mucha solidaridad. Nuestra unión, Fernando mencionaba recién la unidad, nuestra unión da fuerzas y esperanza. Da fuerzas desde la conciencia de que hay muchos que sufren en estos momentos y que para muchos sus vidas han sido cambiadas para siempre, en todas partes del mundo. Por eso nuestra unión nos da fuerzas. Recordemos, sin lugar a dudas, a las víctimas del terremoto de Turquía, los terremotos de Turquía y Siria. Por mi parte, quiero reiterar mi apoyo a mi compañero del equipo de presidencia, el alcalde de Altay, así como a nuestra membresía en Turquía y en la región. Recordemos también las víctimas de los incendios en Chile y a aquellos y aquellas trabajadores que sin descanso cuidan de nosotras y de nosotros y protegen vidas. Necesitamos más que nunca liderazgos profundamente humanos que cuiden a las personas y a aquellas que nos cuidan también. Y nuestra unión nos da esperanza. Nos da esperanza porque esta semana hemos dado los primeros pasos para desplegar nuestro pacto, transformándolo en algo más allá de nada más y nada menos que un compromiso colectivo. Acciones que sirvan para recuperar la confianza, para repensar las bases de nuestra economía, para proteger los bienes comunes y para transformar la gobernanza, no, la política a todos los niveles. Con nuestra bandera, el poder de nosotras, las ciudades y regiones, contamos con los ODS que nos dan el marco para la transformación. Nos proponemos alcanzar un futuro en el que la localización de los ODS sea una realidad y en el que las ciudades, los territorios y las comunidades estén en el centro de la acción a todos los niveles. Derecho a la ciudad, igualdad, feminismo, proximidad y responsabilidad gobernante. Si este es el centro de nuestra acción, entonces seguiremos defendiendo la necesidad de situar al ODS 11 en el centro de la agenda y las grandes temáticas que se debatirán en nuestras asambleas mundiales de gobiernos locales y regionales, tanto en Nairobi como en la cumbre de los ODS. Las mujeres lideresas en CGLU compartimos una enorme responsabilidad de visibilizar y abrir las puertas para el liderazgo femenino en todo el mundo, en todos los niveles. Trato de hacerlo todos los días en mi Montevideo, que tiene el primer gobierno paritario de la ciudad, y tenemos que conseguirlo a través de nuestra organización en todo el mundo. Mientras que en el momento actual los derechos de diversas mujeres están cada vez más amenazados, el llamamiento a una agenda municipal feminista resuena en todo el mundo. Qué orgullosas estarían hoy las primeras, las que hay que hacer un esfuerzo de memoria para recordar, tan valientes y tan solas. Los gobiernos locales y regionales podrían entonces y deberían tener un poderoso rol a la hora de situar la equidad, los derechos humanos y el cuidado en el centro de nuestras comunidades. Uno de los aspectos fundamentales de nuestro pacto es la defensa de la democracia. A veces, que tiene que ser constante. A veces esta defensa constante me hace recordar, y acá voy a invocar un pensamiento occidental, me disculpo ante toda la asamblea porque acá estamos de todo el mundo, yo voy a invocar un pensamiento occidental. Y digo que a veces la defensa constante y la democracia me hace pensar lo poco que hemos podido avanzar más allá, o quizás no haber llegado aún a la máxima de la Revolución Francesa en 1789, libertad, igualdad, fraternidad. No sé si hemos llegado a eso aún. Y la defensa de la democracia para nosotros está muy fuerte detrás de estos conceptos. Y finalmente, seguimos luchando, o por lo menos, ni más ni menos, que como decía una poetisa uruguaya, Premio Cervantes, Ida Vitale, en uno de sus poemas dice: por años disfrutar del error y de la enmienda. ¿Qué trabajo le voy a estar dando a los traductores? Eso lo digo yo. Déjenme repetir. Por años disfrutar del error y de la enmienda. Haber podido hablar, caminar libre, no existir mutilada, no entrar o sí en iglesias, ser en la noche un ser como en el día, no ser casada en un negocio, medida en cabras, sufrir gobiernos de parientes o legal lapidación, no desfilar ya nunca más y no admitir palabras que pongan en la sangre limaduras de hierro. Descubrir por ti misma otro ser no previsto en el puente de la mirada. Ser humano y mujer, ni más ni menos. Eso dice esta petición. Yo llevo este poema en el alma y con esto en el alma volveremos a defender la gobernanza feminista en las Naciones Unidas. En marzo también trabajaremos y abogaremos por proteger y cuidar uno de los bienes comunes más preciados. En la Cumbre del Agua de las Naciones Unidas, nuestro colectivo abordará la importancia del agua como un bien común y de incluir a los gobiernos locales y regionales como actores claves en su gobernanza y valorizar en su justa medida lo que es un bien común. Vaya si los gobiernos locales sabemos la importancia de un bien común que no tiene dueño, pero es de todas y de todos. Hoy se cumple un año de la invasión a Ucrania, estimados colegas, un año muy duro. La violencia sigue formando parte del día a día de millones de personas. En este año, nuestra organización ha seguido buscando tender puentes, sin miedo a condenar la violencia y buscando proteger siempre a las personas más vulnerables. En entornos donde los gobiernos nacionales ejercen la violencia en cualquiera de sus formas, las ciudades somos continentes de esperanza. Y es con esta esperanza que estoy convencida de que nuestro Foro de Ciudades y Territorios de Paz en Bogotá nos vea como actores capaces de mostrar que no habrá paz si no nace desde abajo. Hablamos de esto hace unos días también, hablamos de construir confianza y de la necesaria participación. No habrá paz si no nace de las comunidades que la necesitan, de las comunidades organizadas, de las comunidades que necesitan la paz como el aire que respiran. Estoy convencida de que nuestro equipo de presidencia, todos ustedes, reunidos aquí hoy están más que listos para desplegar nuestro pacto, para alcanzar conclusiones tangibles, para afrontar la cumbre del futuro de la ONU y ser capaces de transformar los debates globales y desarrollar una agenda común renovada. Nuestro pacto es nuestro compromiso con la transformación sistémica a través de una diplomacia fortalecida por el liderazgo feminista y por la solidaridad, comprometida con la democracia local y la paz, fiel a los valores de subsidiariedad, igualdad de género, autogobierno y transparencia. Con nuestras acciones y tomando nota de las prioridades que hemos identificado en nuestras deliberaciones en el mes de enero, seremos capaces de acompañar a los gobiernos locales y regionales de todo el mundo para alcanzar los objetivos de nuestro pacto. Con claridad, mucha claridad, porque la ampliación de nuestra voz internacional no es el objetivo, es un vehículo para poder influenciar políticas y sistemas que determinen el presente y el futuro de las comunidades a las que representamos, servimos y de las que formamos parte. El objetivo es, como bien dice nuestro pacto, contribuir a esa transformación sistémica y contribuir, sí, de modo perseverante, no a impulsos esporádicos, realizable, con los pies en la tierra y el corazón mirando hacia el futuro que nos convoca día a día por la vida, por una vida más justa, igualitaria y libre, sostenible y feliz para nuestras generaciones y las que vendrán. Muchísimas gracias.
Bravo.
Muy bien, muchísimas gracias. Sin más, vamos a comenzar nuestra reunión. Quisiera proponer inicialmente hablar sobre la situación de Turquía y Siria. Tenemos una propuesta de una declaración de solidaridad que vamos a ver más adelante y quisiera invitarlos en este momento a todas y todos los que estamos aquí presentes a guardar un minuto de silencio en honor a las víctimas. Muchas gracias.
La vicepresidenta por Europa,
Carola, vicepresidenta por Europa, nuestra más cordial bienvenida. Sabemos que aunque no estás presencialmente, siempre estás. Muchas gracias. Tengo varias solicitudes. Quisiera darle primero la palabra al vicealcalde de Konya.
Sayın başkanlarımız, sayın sekreteriye, kıymetli UCLC ailesi. Öncelikle kendimi tanıtmak istiyorum. Adım Mustafa Uzbaş. Konya Büyükşehir Belediyesi Başkan Vekiliyim. Konya Büyükşehir Belediye Başkanımız Uğur İbrahim Altay deprem bölgesinde çalıştığı için aranızda değiller. O yüzden hepinize tek tek özel selamlarını iletmek isterim. Bu benim ilk UCLC toplantım. Benim için çok kıymetli bir deneyim oluyor. Çok özel insanlar tanıdım. O yüzden sizlere teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Sözlerimin hemen başında 6 Şubat tarihinde ülkemizde meydana gelen depremde hayatını kaybeden kardeşlerimize Allah'tan rahmet diliyorum. Geride kalanlara başsağlığı diliyorum. Tedavi gören kardeşlerimize de acil şifalar temenni ediyorum. 6 Şubat sabahı yaşadığımız felaketi her birimizin kalbinde derin yaralar bıraktı. On binlerce kardeşimiz hayatını kaybetti. Yaklaşık 13 milyon vatandaşımız da depremden etkilendi. Yüreğimizi dağlayan bu afete her birimizin kalbinde derin yaralar açtı. Bu afete karşı gelerek ülkemiz içinde gerekse tüm dünyada adeta bir seferberlik oluşturuldu. Başta UCLC üyeleri olmak üzere dünyanın birçok yerinden çok büyük destek gördük. Gönül Sultanı Hazreti Mevlana şöyle diyor: yarasından taze kan sızan gönül ehline dostların yüzünü görmek merhem gibidir. Dünyanın birçok yerinden dostlarımızın desteğiyle bugün yaralarımızı daha hızlı sarıyoruz. Yüzyılın felaketini yüzyılın dayanışmasına dönüştüren tüm paydaşlarımıza yürekten teşekkür ediyorum. Rabbim sizleri ve tüm insanlığı böyle afetlerden korusun diye dua ediyorum. Kıymetli konuklar, bu felaketi bize yerel yönetimlerin depremin etkisini azaltmak ve deprem sonrası yeniden inşa sürecini yönetmek için ne kadar mühim olduğunu gözler önüne serdi. Bizler de afet sonrası bölgedeki vatandaşlarımızın yardımına koşmak ve depremden etkilenen şehirleri yeniden inşa sürecine katkı sunmak için büyük bir seferberlik başlattık. Konya Büyükşehir Belediyesi olarak depremzedelere yardımcı olmak için tüm imkanlarımızı seferber ettik. Deprem felaketinin hemen ardından Hatay'a giderek arama kurtarma, mobil mutfak, ekmek fırını, mobil haberleşme, temiz su temini, enerji ihtiyacı, yardımların koordinasyonu gibi hizmetleri yerine getirdik. Deprem nedeniyle hasar gören altyapıyı adeta yeniden inşa ettik. Ayrıca deprem bölgesinden ayrılan ve evlerini kaybetmiş yaklaşık 30 bin depremzedeye de Konya'da kucak açlık ev sahipliği yapıyoruz. İnşallah tüm gücümüzle depremzede kardeşlerimizin yanında olmaya devam edeceğiz. Bu yaşadığımız süreç tüm dünyaya acil durumlara karşı her zaman hazırlıklı olunması gerektiğini bir kez daha hatırlattı. Bu nedenle tüm şehirlerin altyapısını güçlendirmeli ve her türlü felakete karşı dirençli politikalar geliştirmeliyiz. Bu politikalar acil durumların etkilerini azaltmak konusunda ve acil durumlara karşı hızlı bir şekilde toparlanma aşamasında büyük rol üstlenecektir. Acil durumlara hazırlıklı olmak kadar önemli olan bir diğer konu ise şehirlerin yeniden inşası. Doğal afetler, çatışmalar, savaşlar, yangınlar, depremler veya başka nedenler ile hasar görmüş şehirleri yeniden inşa etmek için bizlere çok büyük sorumluluklar düşüyor. Yeniden inşa sürecinde geçmişteki hatalarımızdan ders çıkararak bu hataların tekrar edilmemesi için çalışmalı, şehirleri daha dayanıklı, güvenli ve yaşanabilir hale getirmeliyiz. Tüm bunları hayata geçirirken doğamıza karşı barışçıl bir misyon benimseyerek su ve atık yönetimi gibi faktörlerde dikkate almalıyız. Sayın başkanlarımız, değerli konuklar, bizler dil, din, ırk ya da başka özellikleri ayırt etmekten, kimse arasında ayrım yapmadan herkese karşı eşit mesafede duran bir teşkilat olarak 2023-2026 döneminde insanlarımızı ve doğamızı önceleyen politikalar ile bugüne kadar gelmiş olduğumuz noktadan daha ileriye gitmek için elimizden geleni yapacağız. Bugün burada ortaya koyacağımız tüm fikirlerin daha iyi bir gelecek inşası için ciddi anlamda fayda sağlayacağını umuyorum. 6 Şubat'taki deprem gibi afetleri bir daha yaşamamayı diliyor. Binlerce vatandaşa ev sahipliği yapan biz şehirlerin hiç kimseyi ve hiçbir yeri geride bırakmadan daha sürdürülebilir, daha güvenilir ve en önemlisi daha yaşanabilir bir dünya sağlamak için var gücümüzle çalışması gerektiğine inanıyorum. Tüm yerel ve bölgesel yönetim temsilcilerinin bir araya geldiği ve şehir yönetimi alanındaki uzmanlıkların paylaşıldığı, işbirliği ve fikir alışverişi yapma fırsatı sunan bu yıllık istişare toplantısının hayırlara vesile olmasını diliyorum. Tüm misafirleri en kalbi duygularımla sevgi ve saygıyla selamlıyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Muchísimas gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Además por traernos en imágenes un pedazo de lo que es un drama social. Por supuesto que cuentan con nuestra solidaridad y todo lo que las ciudades, que varias hemos ayudado, podamos ayudar de alguna manera. Quisiera ahora darle la palabra al alcalde de Ginebra, que también es presidente de nuestro grupo de trabajo sobre prevención y gestión territorial de la crisis.
Thank you very much, President. Yes, we just saw very, very impressive and terrible pictures and figures about what just happened in Turkey. We also think of Syria, which has similar destructions and even less access to support and international help. One can see how, within seconds, within minutes, the whole living purposes or the whole living infrastructure, the living of the human beings can be completely transformed, destroyed, and this is very difficult to handle. Fortunately, there is already a huge solidarity with our friends in Turkey and Syria, but we know that this is a long-lasting situation, and it is vital that we do not just think of them and support them and being active on the field just in the first days or weeks after the catastrophe, but we have to keep in mind that after the immediate aid, rescuing survivors and so on, they will have huge needs, very basic needs, access to clean water, access to housing, access to food, access to medical care, and so on. UCLG as such cannot obviously cover all the needs, but we are a federation, a congregation of cities, local governments. So we can feel how terrible it is for our colleagues of local municipalities in the two countries. As we have been saying all the week, we are at the forefront in those situations. We are the first to be there, and we are not always being taken seriously whenever we need support from agencies, from governments, and so on, because we know the population, we know the needs. So, in my function as chairperson of the working group of UCLG on territorial prevention and management of crisis, we have initiated, and I'm very happy that the Council validated this, the Solidarity Fund.
Can we have a moment because we don't have interpretation?
Oh.
Let us see, maybe give him a mic, a hand mic, because it might be due to the specific microphone. Let us try that.
Thank you. Okay, now it's okay. Thank you. Yes, I hope that now it works, because it's a very important message that of solidarity. I was just mentioning the most important issue, the Solidarity Fund that UCLG created recently, and the working group, it's still not working? No? No traduction. Bon, mais c'est pire, il y a encore moins de gens qui comprennent. Not working still?
Compañeros de producción, ¿funciona? Is it working now?
Do you hear something? I have to talk to test whether it's working. If I don't talk, I won't. No? Nothing. Is it still not working? That's a pity for such an important issue.
I'm very sorry, just a moment.
Okay.
Colleagues, can we test whether it is working or not now?
Sorry, there seems to be a problem with the Zoom image, and the interpreters might need a few minutes to reconnect. Apologies.
Well, let's wait a few minutes. Stay where you are.
Thank you for your patience. Everything seems to be up and running again, and we're ready to start.
Thank you. So, brief summary of what I've been saying. First of all, very impressed and so painful to see the figures and the pictures. We can really have a thought with our colleagues in Turkey and Syria because, as always, local governments, municipalities are at the forefront of the immediate response to the so dramatic needs of the population. And very important also to remember that we don't have to stop that concern after a few days because the needs will be long-term. There were a lot of needs, as I said before, clean water, housing, medical care, food, and so on, and reconstruction afterwards. So really need to focus on this region and show full solidarity. We do it today by our statements and declaration, but it has to go further. And I was just mentioning that UCLG created the Solidarity Fund. I want to here really congratulate a lot of cities which already have given a lot of support. I think of Cité Unie France and a lot of French cities who have been giving more than 100,000 euros together, almost 150,000 euros for immediate support. Many other cities, City of Geneva has always been present, and we are voting in the parliament next week for 500,000 for international aid, for urgent aid for the earthquake victims. But UCLG can go further, and we have created Solidarity Fund. And I really would like to use the working group on resilience and prevention of crises to two aims. First, to exchange information and good practice. How to channel the aid. We know that one of the big challenges is how we manage to bring the aid where it's needed, really directly to the populations on site and through reliable channels. And second, to collect funds within the Solidarity Fund. So I really make an urgent appeal to all of you, and please transmit that to all your colleagues and members of the regional section of UCLG. It will be written again by email and all the channels of information. The Solidarity Fund really needs input from you, financial input. We will ensure, obviously, that it is well used afterwards, well channeled to the, as I said, to the needs which are on the ground. And we also go to the international donors and agencies. They have to take us seriously because as local governments, we know what is needed. We can be pragmatic and effective. And this is a good way to show that the local governments are totally together, not only to talk, but to act. I think we all need that. I would like also to remind that the group is convening every year in Geneva, apart from the Congress and World Council, obviously, convening mostly in November, end of November, early December, to exchange good practice and to meet with international agencies, humanitarian and so on, to see how we can increase the cooperation, because these agencies have now to take us seriously and to see us as a full-scale partner. Local governments have knowledge, they expertise, and they have the legitimacy of local anchors. So thank you very much. I really expect you to contribute to Solidarity Fund as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Now I invite Secretary General to share with us the last update of the declaration concerning this topic.
Thank you very much, President. Well, obviously, this declaration has only but received support. It was proposed by our membership of Turkey, it has suffered only a couple of modifications to strengthen the message around the importance of involving local and regional governments in the reconstruction and focusing on their support. So I will not read the whole declaration, which is very much in line with the declaration that we issued when the earthquake took place. The difference is that now we are mentioning the victims, the specific numbers, the specific damages that it has suffered. And what I will focus on the call of the declaration. The Yusufeli family shares the sorrow of millions of people who live in Turkey and Syria. As the largest local government organization representing thousands of local and regional governments, we stand in solidarity with our members in the region. Taking the losses caused into consideration, we are releasing this declaration in solidarity with all the cities affected. We, as UCLG family, promise to do everything within our power to help support those who have been deeply affected by the disasters. In this regard, we believe that all the resources should be mobilized to provide the financial, technical, and humanitarian needs to rebuild these cities. The leadership and participation of local governments is vital for us during the rebuilding process of the cities affected by the earthquake. Therefore, we will support local governments in the preparation and implementation of recovery plans and call for coordinated multi-level action in the response to the crisis to ensure we rebuild safer, more durable, and more environmentally friendly cities. We believe that serious efforts should be made to reduce the risk of earthquakes and to enhance disaster management, to not suffer the consequences caused by such disasters again. In this context, we will continue developing our resilience agenda in order to be prepared for emergencies and reduce the risks. We commit to supporting decentralized cooperation and peer-to-peer collaboration, in particular through coordinated efforts such as our Solidarity Fund to rebuild the cities that were affected. As UCLG, we would like to share our deepest sympathies and strengths, not only to those affected by the crisis, but also to those helping solve the crisis, and would like to extend our most heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of all the deceased.
Muy bien. Bueno, para seguir con nuestra agenda, como todos sabemos, en Daejeon fue aprobado nuestro Pacto para el Futuro, donde además se identificaron diversas vías innovadoras a través de las cuales los distintos gobiernos de ciudades y regionales colaboran o trabajan alrededor del concepto del cuidado con innovación y con mucho compromiso. Este pacto obviamente reitera, y creo que las reuniones de estos días lo hemos reiterado una y otra vez de distintas formas, que estamos preparados para unirnos a nuestros socios nacionales o internacionales para poder aportar un cambio significativo en el contrato social de abajo hacia arriba y para poder contribuir en la cumbre sobre el futuro de las Naciones Unidas y más allá también. Una vez que el pacto ya está adoptado y que nos hemos tomado estos días para profundizarlo, discutirlo, ¿verdad? Creo que sería el momento de identificar los principales elementos para poder llevarlo adelante. Y por eso me gustaría abrir la discusión y empezar por los colegas de la Presidencia. Así que dejo la palabra a disposición.
Dear Carolina, yes, thank you. Dear Carolina, dear Emilia, dear members of the Presidency and everybody present here, it's my pleasure to be here with you today at our first in-person meeting of the new UCLG Presidency. And thank you for the excellent organization of the retreat and of this Presidency meeting. The family is getting bigger and bigger, but it's joyous. It is important that we gather with colleagues from all around the world in the continuous challenging times in which one crisis follows the other. And I want to express my solidarity with the colleagues from the Miwa region, and I'm terribly sorry for the losses of all these innocent lives in Turkey and in Syria. We will stand next to you in times of recovery. And dear Mustafa, welcome to the family. I would also like to express my deepest concerns about the fact and the situation in Ukraine. We all remember this, as we were here in Barcelona, at that time also, last year, February, witnessing it together. It is truly devastating that this war is still ongoing, that so many lives have been lost. There are no winners in times of war, not only on this continent, but all the continents. After these more general remarks, let me get back to the point on the agenda, the Pact for the Future. My colleagues from VNG have updated me on all the work that was done earlier this week. And I was happy to hear that you have been working on making the Pact for the Future of Humanity the important visionary document from Daejeon concrete. That you have jointly designed ways of getting to a more equal and sustainable world. That you've discussed possible partnerships with national and international actors based on justice, solidarity, and sustainability. I fully underline the essence of the Pact, as well as its underlying values: decentralization, subsidiarity, self-government, and accountability. Values which we defined at the start of our World Organization as our fundamental values, which are still relevant today. Although it's 100 years ago, they're still relevant today. And I also very much agree that we will only achieve the ambitions of the Pact together in partnership. It is our responsibility that we include local and regional governments from all regions of the world in its implementation, that we build bridges and move ahead together. Moreover, we need to connect to ongoing national and international efforts and help these levels of government by providing them with new ideas and solutions. We're also doing this at a national level. VNG is currently cooperating with a think tank and with professionals from all parts of society to develop a vision for the country in 2040. We do so because the national government does not seem to have such a long-term vision. We owe it to our citizens, the young generation, to provide perspective, to innovate, and to be bold and action-oriented. As mentioned in the Presidency meeting of January 18, peace building, international cooperation, and the SDGs remain at the top of my priorities at home and within UCLG. And I'm therefore very happy that the final pact includes more explicit references to decentralized cooperation and to the peace agenda, following motions from members of the CIB working group and other members. And that international solidarity is a red thread throughout the document. Concrete actions related to these themes, to which I would like to actively contribute, are the UCLG Municipal Peace Talks, which we launched last year, high-level dialogues with national governments and international donors on the key recommendations of the new policy paper on development cooperation, the different SDG meetings and summits at UN level in view of accelerating on the SDG agenda, and perhaps already constructing a follow-up agenda post-2030 with even more recognition for local and regional governments. I believe, dear Carolina, dear friends, dear colleagues, that these activities are building stones for unfolding page by page, word by word, line by line, the Pact for the Future, and look forward to putting them together with all of you.
Me ha pedido la palabra Johnny Araya, alcalde de San José de Costa Rica.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Buenas tardes a todos los miembros de la Presidencia y a todas las autoridades locales que nos acompañan, invitados especiales. Yo realmente me siento muy satisfecho de que esta organización ha logrado hacer un planteamiento estratégico importante con el Pacto para el Futuro de la Humanidad que surgió en Daejeon. Me parece que es un planteamiento conceptual absolutamente correcto. Sin embargo, yo creo que nosotros tenemos el reto, tenemos la obligación de responder la pregunta de cómo se implementa ese pacto para el futuro. Porque conceptualmente está muy bien. Nosotros identificamos cuáles son los problemas más serios que tienen nuestras ciudades, que tienen nuestros países, y son problemas comunes. Sabemos que la pandemia desencadenó otras crisis, que la pandemia hizo que se agudizara el problema de la pobreza en el mundo, que la pandemia hizo que se agudizara el problema de la desigualdad de una manera dramática. Los efectos del cambio climático siguen sin que puedan ser enfrentados exitosamente. Pero nosotros tenemos que buscar propuestas concretas de cómo logramos reducir la pobreza, de cómo logramos mejorar la distribución del ingreso. Yo creo que deberíamos aprovechar, y es una propuesta que hago, el Buró de Bruselas, para que de aquí a eso podamos construir una propuesta que esta organización lleve a la cumbre del futuro de Naciones Unidas, que pase de lo conceptual a acciones concretas que las ciudades proponen. ¿Cómo logramos nosotros, por ejemplo, que los organismos multilaterales de financiamiento, como el BID, como el Banco Mundial, le abran programas de financiamiento blando a las ciudades? ¿Cómo abrimos esa puerta que nos ha costado tanto tiempo abrirla para que haya mecanismos de financiamiento mucho más efectivos? ¿Cómo mejoramos la cooperación norte-sur? ¿Cómo mejoramos la cooperación hacia las ciudades más pobres del mundo? Y esas son preguntas que requieren respuestas. Y yo creo que nosotros debemos pasar del planteamiento general, de un planteamiento conceptualmente correcto, del que debemos felicitarnos, porque la verdad es que ese planteamiento del Pacto para el Futuro fue un acierto de esta organización, pero me parece que debemos aterrizarlo. Y yo propondría que la reunión de Bruselas tenga como una de sus prioridades el que nosotros tengamos una propuesta, si se quiere, audaz, innovadora, para poder llevar a la cumbre del futuro de las Naciones Unidas. Que las ciudades marquen una diferencia en esa cumbre y que precisamente cuando hablamos, y que fue muy acertado todo el tema de la comunicación que se discutió acá, que lo que propongan las ciudades en Naciones Unidas pueda ser noticia. Pueda ser noticia. Para que sea noticia tenemos que llegar con planteamientos innovadores, audaces, correctos, de cómo se puede implementar este pacto para el futuro de la humanidad. Muchas gracias, presidente.
En este marco del trabajo para la concreción del despliegue del Pacto para el Futuro, obviamente tenemos que prepararnos, como habíamos dicho al principio, para la cumbre del futuro de las Naciones Unidas del 2024 y también para la cumbre de los ODS de las Naciones Unidas en septiembre de este año. Está con nosotros Chris Williams, director de la Oficina de ONU Habitat en Nueva York, y lo invitaría, si tiene a bien, compartir con nosotros sus ideas sobre la agenda internacional.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, there we go. Presidency, distinguished representatives of local governments at regional and global level, colleagues, fellow partners in the UN system, thanks very much for providing an opportunity for us to brief the presidency. This is an honor, very much encouraged with the retreat the last few days, as well as participating in this open and frank discussions among the presidencies of UCLG. I want to spend a bit of time to just explain a little bit of the history and the current activities and future work of engagement of local governments, local and regional governments, and intergovernmental processes. I would like at the outset to commend UCLG as the Secretariat on behalf of the Global Task Force on Local and Regional Governments for their efforts to reach out, bend, and engage in the process of consultation with the UN system. This began in earnest 2 years ago when the Secretary General decided to establish the UN Task Force on the Future of Cities. There were 20 UN agencies that gathered to figure what's the best way to move forward on cities, and everyone of the UN system that was there recognized that that conversation would be meaningless if we did not have representation from the Global Task Force on Local and Regional Governments. So we opened that space for a dialogue, and we identified 12 areas in which we can increase the space for local governments and intergovernmental processes. These 12 areas covered a wide range of accreditation, how best to participate in the governing bodies of the UN system, both at headquarters and each of the subsidiary bodies of the UN system, and how to work within the UN system itself and partner with UN agencies, et cetera, at all levels, globally, regionally, and especially at country level. So these 12 recommendations went to the Secretary General when he was preparing our common agenda. And among those recommendations, he chose one to put front and center. It's within the first 500 words of our common agenda that calls for the establishment of the Secretary General's Advisory Group on Local and Regional Governments. Once that was put in our common agenda, a consultative process began between member states, headed by the President of the General Assembly, and the Secretariat, headed by the Secretary General, to discuss various recommendations of our common agenda. Among them, this recommendation to have an advisory group on local and regional governments. There was no member states that said this shouldn't happen. There was no outright rejection of this proposal, and it did not require the decision of the General Assembly. It was at the discretion of the Secretary General. So with that in mind, he requested the same group, the UN Task Force on the Future of Cities, to establish a terms of reference for the advisory group. This went through a similar process with 20 UN agencies working with the Global Task Force on Local and Regional Governments and their representatives to come up with a document, very short and crisp, that would define the work and the composition and the time frame for the work of this advisory group. Now, in the process of developing that terms of reference, this concurred with the high-level meeting of the General Assembly on the implementation of the New Urban Agenda, which took place in April last year. And once again, the Global Task Force did not sit idle. They utilized this space to organize a World Assembly on the eve of the General Assembly, and through a consultative process with the President of the General Assembly, he opened up the General Assembly for 20 minutes for what was called a segment on leading locally, and invited 4 representatives of the World Assembly that had met the day before to address the General Assembly. This is the first time in the history of the General Assembly that such an action took place. So while the Secretary General was working on the common agenda, we had a President of the General Assembly who was open-minded about the concept of inclusive and network multilateralism and began to practice it in this session of the General Assembly to review the implementation of the New Urban Agenda. So with this momentum and this progress, we have seen increased interest on the part of the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary General, and the new advisor for policy, Guy Ryder, the former Director General of ILO, to move forward with this. Just to mention quickly the composition, 5 central government representatives, 5 local government representatives, and 5 members of the United Nations system at the Undersecretary General level, chaired by the Secretary General. Very small, tight group. So this is a departure, and many of you in this room have participated in meetings with the Secretary General, where it's all local governments and it's the Secretary General. And he sits there and says, you know, I wish I could help you, but it's a member state decision. My wife is a local government official. I am sympathetic with you. As the Secretary General, he's behind us, but he doesn't operate alone. He has to report to member states. So what's distinct about this advisory group is that it has 5 central government representatives, 5 parts of the UN system, and 5 local governments representatives, local and regional government representatives. So in that advisory group, we have the basis for very serious discussion about what are the ways in which collectively central governments, the UN system, and the Global Task Force on Local and Regional Governments can think about mechanisms to engage local governments much more seriously in intergovernmental processes. So with all of this in mind, what's what would make sense for the presidency? What's the thinking? In addition to the challenge of reducing 20,000 representatives to 5, other than that small exercise, it's also what do we want, what would be the best thing to do, how to utilize this space. Now, what's important is that it's not an open-ended process, it's just 2 years, so that it can lead into the Summit of the Future. It's seen as a work stream that can make a contribution to our common agenda specifically at the Summit of the Future. So one of the things is, what are the mechanisms that were identified? What are the ways in which local government can engage much more seriously in intergovernmental processes? What institutional mechanisms should be put forward? And a lot of work has been done on this already, and the leadership of the presidency should take note of that, but also think creatively about what they would like to see come out on the other end. What would emerge in our common agenda with the Summit of the Future? The second is, and I think I mentioned this earlier, you have the Pact for the Future. You have a clear agenda of what you would like to move forward on. And the distinguished presidents from Costa Rica indicated it's not just a matter of having a plan, it's how to implement it. What are the resources? What are the mechanisms to move forward? I would urge you to put this on the table. This should be part of the consultation with central governments and with the UN system. And mind you, the UN system representatives are not just going to be the typical UNICEF, UNDP, UN Habitat. This should span the human rights community, the humanitarian community, and the peace and security community, as well as the development community, because there's a recognition by the Secretary General that all of these domains are extremely relevant and pertinent to local governments, and without local governments, they're not going to happen. So with those remarks, I just want to conclude by mentioning that between now and the summit, the SDG summit, we have a very important meeting in Nairobi. It's the second session of the United Nations Habitat Assembly. The first one was in 2019. And I have had initial discussions, as has our Executive Director, Maimouna Sharif, with member states, and they are very receptive to having reproduce at the Habitat Assembly what was done at the General Assembly. Having a major session of the World Assembly of the Global Task Force before the Habitat Assembly, just before it starts, and having a dedicated segment of the Habitat Assembly for local and regional governments.
Well, thank you very much. It's really an advance what you have shared with us. Now, Emilia, if you can share with us a strategy.
Well, thank you very much, President. Allow me, first of all, to thank the Director of the UN Habitat Office for being with us, not only today, but throughout the week, because this partnership is consolidating, and I think is helping us to make our efforts known, to make member states understand as well what we want to do. As we always say, the challenge is not the secretariat of the multilateral system. The challenge is that the multilateral system is an intergovernmental system organized around member states that are nations. And so, of course, that part of the dialogue is extremely important. So thanking Chris also for this good news around the Habitat Assembly. I would like to stress and be very pragmatic. I know you all are. Yes, we have a plan. We are connecting the SDG Summit with the Summit for the Future. And we are doing this through also the Habitat Assembly. For us, it's one single agenda. It is one single agenda. And it is an agenda that is not about development, but is about humanity. And so the way that we are going to work towards the summit is obviously making our pact concrete and actionable, deploying this into a platform of high-impact localization policies to close the gap. We have a platform that you can all contribute to present in September, and also by demonstrating our muscle, our force, our vision, by being in New York, by being in Nairobi. We are going to convene the World Assembly of Local and Regional Governments twice this year, once in Nairobi and once in New York. The Deputy Commissioner of New York City already announced yesterday that Mayor Adams from New York is willing to co-convene with us this World Assembly in New York. So the profile of this assembly is truly highly political and visible and noticeable. So the strategy is to have voices, but also to ensure that we have cases to show and that we have the pact. So we are going to be explaining the pact to the diplomats at the United Nations throughout meetings with the group of friends. We are going to be present in policy processes like water. And what we are going to plea for is a package of solutions engaged at a call for transformation. So a political declaration per SDG that links to the Pact for the Future with a package of technical solutions that we are addressing and policy commitments. With all of this, we will arrive to the end of the year and we will engage. We have already started providing ideas with the pact, with the Summit for the Future of the United Nations. We have started to discuss with the coordinators, the co-facilitators of the summit, and they are open to our ideas. The tactic that we are using is putting local service provision at the heart of the discussion and linking localization to those, the potential of service provision and the achievement of the SDGs. We will be calling on you, each of you, to wear a hat, one per SDG. Each of you will be representing the SDGs. We have an additional hat. We have 18, not 17, because we consider culture, and I'm looking at Dublin, the representative of Dublin, host of our next Culture Summit, is also an SDG for us. We are not asking. If member states do not want to consider culture as an SDG, that's their problem. We will consider culture as an SDG, and we are going with those 18 hats, with those 18 proposals to the United Nations to ensure that the SDGs and the post-2030 agenda is based on local vision and local actions. It's a bit of a strategy, but also a bit of tactics. It's very practical. We will need you in Nairobi. We will need you in New York. And above all, we need you to wear those hats and to engage in high-impact partnerships with UN agencies, but also with organized civil society to ensure that our voices are heard, but above all, that our vision shapes the future. Thank you very much.
Great, really great. Anyone has any comments? Okay. Then pasamos al próximo. Esta mezcla de inglés. Pasamos al próximo punto. Hubo una evaluación realizada sobre CGLU a través de una consultoría, DNA Consulting. Nos gustaría, Emilia, si podés, digamos, compartir con nosotros el resultado, y ya que estamos, el tema de los consejos políticos también.
Muchísimas gracias, Presidenta. Efectivamente, creo que se pueden conectar muy bien los dos, porque la renovación de los consejos políticos está también ligada a la institucionalidad de la organización, una institucionalidad que estamos muy dispuestos a mejorar, y es el espíritu de esta presidencia, que evolucione y que sea más fuerte, que tengamos más cohesión y, por lo tanto, más potencia. No es la primera vez que el resultado de la evaluación externa que nosotros mismos solicitamos está sobre la mesa de la reunión de presidencia. Ya lo estuvo en la anterior presidencia, pero ahora ya estamos empezando a ver más refinadamente qué instrumentos vamos a poner a disposición del liderazgo político, pero también de la maquinaria técnica de la organización, de los distintos nodos de la organización, para efectivamente cumplir con las recomendaciones. So allow me to go to those recommendations. The evaluation, as you know, was a quite positive evaluation. It was also very similar to our own evaluation. I even heard part of that coming back this morning and throughout the week. It was the assessment of we have great potential, we feel good, we have advanced, but we need to reach others, but we need to have more clarity on this, but these new times, the increasing polarization also demand that we have very sound governance to ensure the unity that we will need to actually serve the large and diverse community that we are. And the proposal is very clear. We need to work on 3 axes. One axis is the outreach, so we need to ensure that, that we have the right outreach. We are a very big movement. We are more than organization. This came up on Monday and Tuesday, and in order to do that, we need to reach out to others. And up until now, we have been maybe reaching out too much to other local and regional governments, but we need to reach out to journalists. We need to reach out to private sector. We need to reach out to others. And so the proposal in this sense is to create a special task force, a political task force that looks at this and that develops a roadmap accompanied, of course, by the technical notes of the organization. And the discussions that we have been having with the president when I visited in Montevideo, but also with many of you, are starting to align. Our proposal is that the vice presidencies of the organization that have not usually met together should have this task to engage in discussions around the outreach and to develop that roadmap there. Of course, the vice presidencies can be accompanied by a group of other members that are already involved and that could be contributing to this. And as everything in UCLG, because of the sheer numbers that we represent, we will have to do different cycles of consultation, but it will be in the hands of the vice presidency to do that. The second point that we are looking at is monitoring, monitoring our impact. Even when talking about the tactic to go to the United Nations for the summits, and even when unpacking the pact and making it actionable, we find ourselves with the very traditional monitoring models that do not answer to the type of movement that we are. So we are, we have lost interpretation again. Is that correct, colleagues, or can we hear it? We have a problem again. Il n'y a pas de traduction? Non. Oh là. On va avoir les mêmes problèmes qu'on avait avant, probablement. Let me check with the team.
It should be working well.
Should be working now?
Yes.
So the monitoring of our own impact, the definition of the monitoring of our own impact is a full-fledged exercise, UCLG exercise, so not only of the World Secretariat, but also of the regional sections, where also the political leadership needs to be involved. We are starting to develop a methodology. You will be invited as presidency to participate in one of these consultations. Secretary Generals have started to participate this week in one of those exercises. And we will go through the different nodes at regional level and at global level to define the way, the indicators that we would like to see our successes or failures to be measured by. So it is a joint effort with 3 levels: the technical level of the secretariat, the political level of the presidency, and then consultations to the groups of members that are active in the policy councils. And finally, the last group is the group on governance. Of course, constitutions are important pillars, bylaws are important pillars of any organization. They need to look at carefully. not treated mildly. They are not easy to amend in order to find new balances, but we have also other rules, procedure rules that can be easily amended, and also the Constitution need to be looked at. The three issues that we have been considering as needing new consideration is, for instance, the composition of the Committee on Statutory Affairs, that plays a very important role also in the definition of the electoral procedural rules. And so we will need to think how we do this. And this is an exercise that I think needs to be led, this is my proposal, President, and I hope you all agree, by the Presidency, but with the support of an external facilitator that also understand the legal or institutional repercussions. It is my proposal that we use time to come to that conclusion. We also want to devote time to look into the possibility of changing our own institutional architecture to allow for the integration of civil society in some of our policy-making bodies, like we are asking the United Nations to do with us. And so we need to determine till what level that is going to be possible. One thought that we have been discussing with all of you for a while, and we have been testing how this can work, is the policy councils. Remember that we have town halls that regularly meet with the policy councils, and so part of the discussion of this governance task force will be to explore how to first recognize town halls as part of the institutional structure, second, to integrate them in the deliberations of the policy councils. There are also another couple of proposals that are being looked at, like the integration of youth in our decision making, and the recognition of the diversity of our membership with more specific bodies or roles for local government associations, for direct membership, different mechanisms of participation which in fact already exist but could be integrated in policy deliberations in a different manner. That would be the proposal, to have the Presidency looking online at some of these discussions, then to have one of the in-person meetings of the Presidency facilitated by an external advisor to gather conclusions, and then go back to the Secretaries General and the technical secretariats to give shape to those recommendations. The calendar for this, and I am almost finished, President, the calendar for this is this year. This year we need to reach our council in Konya with concrete proposals. So meetings around this are going to start in April. We need to have concrete proposals by the end of the year so that we can work them out the year after, and arrive to the last year before the following Congress with sound systems that we are all happy with. So this is a calendar, and connecting it to the policy councils, well, we will have proposals for a new composition of the policy councils. We will open the call for interest after this meeting, and we will see the results of the interest during our executive bureau, and the council would approve the composition, and of course it will be with that new composition that we will consider the integration of civil society. So in a nutshell, this is what we are proposing, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments? I think it's excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, that's my comment. Okay, well, let's pass to the next issue concerning two important UCLG events. One of them is the Executive Bureau. I invite Pascal Smet, State Secretary of the Brussels region, that will be our host in our next meeting in June, I think. Pascal?
I'm over here.
Okay.
Hello. Yes, for the very first time in City Alliance history, three organizations will come together and organize their annual or three annual conferences at the same place, actually in Brussels. It's Metropolis, you well know, of course, as part of your organization. They do it together with Eurocities, which is the European Association of Cities and Municipalities, and also with OECD, the 26th Inclusive Mayor Championship Program. These three organizations will organize between the 12th and the 15th of June together with the Brussels Capital Region, the Brussels Urban Summit. It's not only those organizations, because it's getting a lot of enthusiasm, if I can say that, in the world of City Alliance. Also, the European Commission will participate. You know that Brussels is de facto the capital of Europe and that we are the host of the European institutions. And at this conference, we will have the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who confirmed her presence for the closing ceremony, but also for a power lunch. I will be coming back, and other European commissioners will be there, but also other international organizations will be there. The Global Mayor program will be there. UN Habitat has asked to participate. Police, many others are using this gathering of probably 350 cities in Brussels to discuss on a program axed on the mobility, migration issues, the whole issues of social inequality, and also, that are the main issues that will be discussed at this topic to address the big challenges that cities will have. And we are very happy and very glad to have your executive bureau too at Thursday, the 15th of June, where you will be in Brussels. But of course you are invited for the days before that, and the program is pretty simple. In the morning we do joint plenary sessions. We will also organize in the afternoon for every organization the activities they want to do. But then, very important, we see this also as exclusive, as an excellent way of networking. And so we will organize power breakfast and power lunches, of which, for instance, Ursula von der Leyen, again, the President of the European Commission, confirmed that she will be there and host a lunch with 8-10 mayors, but also Commissioner Ferreira, also Commissioner Hahn, probably the President of the European Parliament will do the same. So many other people will be there and giving you an opportunity to discuss directly during lunch or during breakfast, face-to-face in small groups, things that normally are very complicated to organize. This all will be done in the days. And we also will organize field trips, of course, in Brussels, but also to other Belgian cities where a lot of things of city regeneration and urban renewal is possible. So the second week of June will be a very special event, and with all these international city alliances joining the forces to organize something big. And once again, I'm very happy, Emilia and Carolina, that you decided, with us, because I was there too, in Daejeon in South Korea, to organize your executive bureau in Brussels. We think it is good for us to have you in Brussels. And as a new member, the Brussels Capital Region is now a member of your organization next to our municipalities in Brussels. We will be very happy to host you and make it your life very comfortable. And you will see a wonderful opportunity to see the beautiful transformation of the city of Brussels, of a city for cars to a city for people. So we're looking forward to have you and host you in the second week of June. And you're all invited to come, of course, if you are a member. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The second important meeting that we will have is concerning culture, the UCLG Culture Summit. I would like to invite Kat O'Driscoll, the Dublin City Councillor, to introduce us in this next meeting. Remind us the date.
The end of November, exact date to be established. End of November.
Okay,
and I also, President, if I may, I want to recall that Dublin was the winner of our UCLG Mexico City Culture 21 Award.
Thank you so much. This is my first UCLG event, and I've been made to feel so welcome. So thank you to the Presidency and the Secretariat and everybody who I've spoken with for making me feel so welcome. I'd like to explain a little about what Dublin City is doing for culture and our ambitions to show you what we do in the summit, as well as hearing what everyone else is doing, and everyone can bring their questions and their ideas to Dublin in November. I chair the city's Culture, Leisure, Recreation and Arts Committee, all of the fun things for the city. And I also am a member of the Dublin City Culture Company, which we just call the Culture Company. And that is our platform for collaborating with people and communities, cultural organisations, businesses, and the council itself to embed cultural experiences in the lives of Dublin people, both the locals and the visitors. The Culture Company organises itself into a listening team, a sharing team, a making team, a doing team, and a going team. And all the work is based on accessibility, well-being, and evidence of outcomes. We have a two-step approach. Listen. What do the people of Dublin feel is important? Respond. Programme responsively to what we've learned by listening. And repeat. We thank you from our deepest part of our heart for recognising our cultural engagement with our award last October, and we continue to be ambitious in this space. The Pact for the Future emphasises the power of we and puts culture and creativity at the core of human development, along with peace and quality of life. This aligns wonderfully with the goals of Dublin City Council and our Culture Company. Our City Development Plan, a statutory 5-year plan for the city adopted last December, requires large-scale developments to provide a minimum of 5% of space for community, arts and culture, and plans are promoted to be co-designed for all facilities. We want to make this happen in a practical way, so we are partnering with developers and urban planners to first find a shared language between culture and planning, and then to create a toolkit so that an understanding of the nuts and bolts of the spaces needed for creativity and culture in the city can be made a reality. We have reviewed our community and neighbourhood arts grants, which showed a significant geographic imbalance across the city and saw immediate results with targeted support and guidance. We are currently drafting our next cultural strategy with cultural rights at its core, and it should be ready in time for the summit in November. The summit will come at great timing in the discussions about an 18th strategic development goal. I've never met someone who doesn't care about culture. It means something different to each of us, and we all feel it's important, but it's never the first, second, third, or even fourth priority for the people making decisions and allocating resources. For many of us, cultural activities and institutions were the first thing to be shut down when the pandemic came to our countries and cities, and the last thing to reopen. Yet, it is important to each of us, and we all have a unique love for what culture brings to our lives. So I am very excited to introduce Dublin culture to everybody who comes to visit us in the winter. And I will make one final comment, which is to you, President Cossa. You opened your remarks about gender equality and the role of women. And today I wore my badge, which says More Mná, which is the Irish campaign for more women in all aspects of life. And I look forward to seeing lots of women at our summit in Dublin next year. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias por el aporte de la experiencia de Dublín con el tema de la cultura y su rol fundamental. Quizás al final del día absolutamente todo se trata de cultura. Nosotros que tenemos un pacto para cuidar a las personas, a la democracia y al planeta, que estamos tan preocupados por el cambio climático, al final del día quizás porque la cultura es mucho más que un espectáculo y es mucho más que la elaboración creativa, muchísimo más. Así que muchísimas gracias por su aporte. Muchas gracias. We are coming to the conclusion of our meeting. The last item should be some member requests. First, a change in the co-presidency. First, we would like to discuss the change in the co-presidency. Our colleague Altay Kulginov, Mayor of Astana and co-president of UCLG, has been appointed Deputy Prime Minister of Kazakhstan. I don't know if I have pronounced correctly. My apologies. Therefore, he no longer holds a local mandate, and his role within the presidency will end on the date of the next executive bureau, who will have this executive bureau to decide on the process to follow. We were also informed that the UCLG Eurasia section, that the current mayor of Astana is interested in filling the vacant position of co-president. So, dear colleagues, any comments in this way?
He's here. Maybe you
I know. You can take the floor, of course.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, уважаемые участники встречи. Я являюсь вице-мэром города Астаны. В первую очередь, позвольте поприветствовать вас и сказать слова благодарности организаторам за приглашение. Участие в ОГМБ дает нам, как мэрии города Астаны, возможность получить доступ к международному опыту, быть частью мирового сообщества городов, а также презентовать свой инвестиционный, культурный и промышленный потенциал. Астана является членом данной организации 2015 года. Мы всегда уделяем особое внимание к международным связям и другим городам мира. Благодаря этому с 14 октября 2022 года экс-мэр Астаны Алтай Кульгинов стал полноправным сопрезидентом ОГМБ. Я с уверенностью могу сказать, что новый мэр Женис Касымбек готов принять должность сопрезидента ОГМБ и продолжить международное сотрудничество в рамках данной организации. Спасибо за внимание.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor of Rabat.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je renouvelle mes remerciements à la présence, aux membres de la présidence et surtout au secrétariat général du CGLU, de toute l'équipe, et à sa tête notre chère Emilia Seiz pour son engagement, son dévouement à notre honorable organisation CGLU. C'est une occasion d'exprimer à mon nom et au nom de tous les membres du conseil de la ville de Rabat, j'enlève ça, exactement parce que ça me dérange, notre profonde tristesse et vif chagrin suite au violent séisme qui a frappé les régions sud-est de la Turquie et de la Syrie. Nous partageons avec vous notre compassion, notre solidarité avec toutes les familles et les victimes. Et franchement, ça nous touche tous ensemble. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes là, tous ravis d'être là, unis et solidaires. Solidaires pour discuter et débattre des grands sujets d'envergure mondiale, comme les droits humains, la paix, le vivre ensemble, la liberté d'expression. Et là, je dois signaler à Madame Émilie que l'idée d'intégrer les journalistes dans cette séance, elle est très importante, parce qu'il n'y a pas mieux que la bonne communication. Partager la bonne communication, ça tue les mauvaises rumeurs. Et c'est très important pour nous les politiciens. Donc, nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui pour défendre nos valeurs, telles que la justice, la cohésion sociale, la solidarité, l'égalité et la démocratie. Nous sommes là également pour élever la voix des gouvernements locaux dans la scène mondiale et promouvoir la décentralisation à différentes échelles de la gouvernance. Nous sommes là également pour parler, défendre l'approche genre, défendre la femme Et là, probablement, je ne serai pas d'accord avec toutes les femmes qui sont dans la salle. Quand je parle de donner la chance à la femme, il faut lui donner cette chance par mérite, car on le mérite. Je le dis, si on donne cette chance à la femme, c'est parce qu'il le mérite vraiment, par son dévouement, par son travail, par sa façon de faire les choses. Aujourd'hui, on est là pour parler des problèmes que nous partageons tous ensemble, le problème de nos mairies, le problème de nos gouvernements locaux. Et là, les problèmes sont pareils, quel que soit le pays, que ce soit un pays développé ou un pays en voie de développement ou un pays émergent ou sous-développé. Les problèmes de la planète sont les mêmes. D'abord, les changements climatiques. Et là, on parle des changements climatiques, l'impact négatif des changements climatiques sur toutes les économies. On parle de la crise de Covid-19. Et là encore, on parle de l'impact de cette crise sur tous les pays, quel que soit leur niveau de développement. Ce qu'il faut penser vraiment, c'est comment on peut partager nos expériences, les expériences réussies qui ont pu faire face à ces événements. Et je prends, par exemple, la ville de Rabat, et je le dis, je suis la première femme élue comme maire de la ville de Rabat. Le jour où j'étais élue, j'ai eu une opposition qui était très forte, une opposition qui m'a déchirée au niveau de la presse. Au bout d'une année, les choses ont changé. Au bout d'une année, une femme qui n'a jamais fait de gestion locale a pu réaliser un excédent de 100 millions de dirhams, ça veut dire c'est 10 millions d'euros, au bout d'une année. Donc déjà, au bout d'une année, j'ai pensé à trouver des solutions pour nos citoyens, les citoyens rabatis. Et là encore, ce qu'on a essayé de faire, et ça je le dis, c'est-à-dire je travaille avec mon équipe et je reviens à la question de monsieur qui a posé tout à l'heure entre politiciens et techniciens. Un politicien ne peut jamais réussir s'il n'est pas bien entouré par des techniciens. Et un technicien, il ne peut jamais donner une solution adéquate, propre à la vérité, au terrain, s'il n'a pas la vision de politicien. Parce que nous, les politiciens, et là je parle des politiciens locaux, nous les politiciens locaux, on exerce la politique de proximité, on est directement en contact avec la souffrance des citoyens, on connaît parfaitement les terrains, on connaît parfaitement les vrais problèmes. Et c'est ça qui fait la différence entre un politicien décentralisé et un politicien dans le gouvernement central. Nous, on est la force du gouvernement central. Et c'est ça ce qui fait la différence. Donc aujourd'hui, on est là pour parler de problèmes, et c'est l'occasion, Madame Émilie, Madame la Présidente, les membres de la Présidence, de parler de ce problème de changement climatique. Comment on a pu, au sein de la ville de Rabat, préserver une source naturelle qui est l'eau potable avec la sécheresse dont souffrent la plupart des continents. Aujourd'hui, on a fait l'installation des stations de réutilisation des eaux traitées. Et ça, elle a eu un double impact. D'abord, j'ai pu réduire les dépenses de point de vue les dépenses de l'eau potable, c'est-à-dire on a pu quand même économiser une somme assez considérable. Et la deuxième chose, c'est qu'on a pu préserver cette source naturelle. Donc, dans ce sens, donc, on a pu quand même réduire le montant des charges, mais en même temps, en deuxième temps, on va généraliser ce bénéfice de ces stations des eaux utilisées aux citoyens bâtis. Également, nous pensons, on a déjà terminé l'étude, et c'est très important, on a terminé l'étude de faire de faire face à ce changement climatique en préservant l'énergie renouvelable. Aujourd'hui, on veut généraliser l'accès aux énergies renouvelables pour toute la population de Rabat, et c'est l'occasion d'en parler. C'est une façon de faire face au changement climatique. Aujourd'hui, on est là pour échanger nos expériences, on est là pour écouter comment on peut faire face à la plupart des problèmes. On veut rentrer chez nous avec un plus qu'on peut apporter à nos mairies. C'est l'occasion de faire face à tous les problèmes. C'est l'occasion de parler de la paix dans le monde entier. C'est l'occasion de parler, de faire face à cette pénurie d'eau. C'est l'occasion de parler également à ce changement climatique. C'est l'occasion de parler de la sécurité alimentaire. Et nous sommes tous là pour partager nos expériences et pour apprendre à travers l'échange de nos expériences. Merci à tous.
Well, concerning the issue about Astana, I would like, Emilia, if you can share with us the procedure to, if there's any comment about that.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. So, as you said in the introduction, well, indeed, the change in position implies a change of mandate within UCLG. And what the Constitution says to us is that it is the Executive Bureau that needs to define how to proceed with this, and it is the World Council that needs to take a definite decision, because as you know, our presidency is elected by our World Council. The World Council takes place once a year. It will be in Konya towards the end of October, and it will be there that it will need to be decided. What would be very useful is for this presidency to show or support or express concerns, so that this can go to the Committee on Statutory Affairs and inform the Executive Bureau that will take place in Brussels. If everybody is aligned that this maintains the spirit of the diversity of this presidency, which it probably does, and I see you nodding, then let us consider to put that recommendation to the Committee on Statutory Affairs so that the statutory process can take place. Thank you very much. If you nod and applaud, we will take it as an agreement.
Okay, thank you. Now, we would like to share with you all a call to peace and solidarity, which, if it is approved, we will publish in our website. So, at the occasion of the tragic anniversary of the war against Ukraine, we, local and regional leaders, members of United Cities and local governments, want to reiterate our call for peace and condemn in the strongest possible terms the attacks on civilians and public infrastructure, which is in violation of international humanitarian law. The abduction and imprisonment of mayors is a clear breach on democratic principles, and we ask for their immediate release. We stand together as World Organization of Local and Regional Governments and advocate for a peaceful solution based on dialogue in the international fora, and call all municipal and regional governments to publicly engage in this path. The growing tensions of war and its spread in different parts of the world continue to pose a serious threat to sustainable development, and this requires local and regional leaders across the globe to engage proactively in advocating for an immediate end of this conflict. We remain steadfast in our support to all the victims of this human tragedy, and will continue to welcome and provide services to the millions of refugees across the world. The global municipalist movement stands ready to support those who show solidarity with Ukraine and act in favor of peace, democracy, and human rights. We also commit to play the fullest role possible in supporting reconstruction efforts in the whole of Ukraine and areas affected by tragedy. With this declaration, we wish to send a clear message of hope and support to the people of Ukraine, and we affirm our commitment to promoting peace, security, and justice for all people everywhere. Nothing can justify war, nor the targeting of cities, nor the targeting of cities and the loss of innocent civilian life. There must always be room for dialogue. We will always stand side by side with the victims, whether they suffer from war or natural disasters and climate change, which affects the whole of humanity, and our hearts are still filled with sorrow at the recent tragedy in Turkey and Syria.
Carola has raised her hand y Pablo Jurado.
Kazan.
Уважаемые коллеги, госпожа президент, город Казань активный участник нашей организации с 2005 года. И, наверное, совсем немного моих коллег в этом зале находятся и в целом в нашей организации, которые представлены с 2005 года. Мы работаем вместе. Мы привержены всем идеям ОГМВ, и все эти годы, а это уже 18 лет моей активной работы и активной работы города Казани, UCLG, к сожалению, на протяжении этих лет случались военные операции, войны, и по какой-то причине мы никогда не принимали декларации. В этой связи я хочу сказать о том, что было бы правильнее, принимая декларацию, заявить о всех войнах и о всех конфликтах, которые на сегодняшний день продолжают место быть. Это мое предложение, обращение к нашим коллегам. Еще раз подчеркиваю, что наше единство, мы муниципальные органы власти, и у муниципальных органов власти во всем мире одни вызовы, объединены мы целями устойчивого развития. Их у нас, как Эмилия справедливо подчеркнула, 17 плюс 1 плюс культура. И это нас всех объединяет. Мы не национальное правительство, мы объединены служению нашим людям на местах. И в этой связи я обращаюсь к коллегам поддержать декларацию о всех войнах, которые происходят в мире. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much. Carola is asking to make a comment. Go on.
Thank you very much, Madam President and dear colleagues. First of all, a lot of greetings to all of you. I'm really looking forward seeing you all soon in person. About the statement, this is an important statement for people, for the women, for the men and children of Ukraine. It is also a statement for our colleagues, the local leaders that are fighting for freedom and democratic values. We fully condemn the full-scale war against Ukraine, targeting innocent civilians and elected representatives, and occupying illegally Ukrainian territories. Bombing civilians and essential public infrastructures represent a violation and clear disregard of the humanitarian law. This is also a statement of solidarity with our prison colleagues. The abduction of 35 Ukrainian mayors since 24th of February 2022 by the attacking forces represents a violation of democratic principles, and the 5 mayors still being detained must be immediately released. All around the world, we see that local leaders fighting for democratic values exposed to threats and hatred, and even killed because of their conviction to stand up for democracy. We must condemn war and protect the values of freedom and human rights. Without peace, we can't work with sustainable development. As local and regional governments, we are committed to facilitate peace and democracy. This statement today is for the people of Ukraine and our support for peace, democracy, and solidarity. But I would like to make an amendment. I think it's time for us to see the reality. Therefore, it's necessary to point out that Russia are the aggressors. An amendment in the first sentence, the third row, could be like this. In the strongest possible terms, the Russian attacks on civilians and public infrastructure. So this is my proposal for an amendment. Thank you very much.
Han pedido la palabra fuera del equipo de presidencia en honor a la apertura de la que hablamos al principio. Vamos a hacer una excepción y le vamos a dar la palabra a la representante de Georgia.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for giving me the floor. First of all, let me convey my deepest condolences to our neighboring people of Turkey and also the people of Syria. There are no words which can convey the feeling of sorrow and devastation which overwhelmed us all. When you witness the tragedy of this magnitude, there are no words which can express these feelings. So I just want to convey my deepest condolences and please accept my assurances that we are there for you and we stand ready to do everything we can. Madam President, I also would like to thank you for presenting the declaration, the draft text of the declaration on Ukraine. I think it is very important today, it is no less important today than it was a year ago to express our solidarity and support to the people of Ukraine. One of the greatest writers and thinkers of our time, the world-renowned author Haruki Murakami, has written in one of his novels that unfortunately the sad reality is that most of the things are being forgotten over time. Even the wars, even the life and death struggles that people are going through, over time, they start to sound like and look like something from the distant past. But unfortunately, the war in Ukraine is still not in the past. Unfortunately, it's very real and it's happening now. And I think that forgetting is something that people of Ukraine are most afraid of. And also, I suppose that forgetting is something that Russia is hoping for. So by adopting this declaration, we will send a much needed message to the people of Ukraine that our feelings and our emotions over the war in Ukraine have not faded over the year, that the world did not and will not get tired of showing the solidarity and support to the people of Ukraine. And also, I think it will send a very important message to the Russian Federation as well, that this war will not fall into oblivion and things will get back to normalcy unless and until all military actions are stopped. So I would like to call on all of you to take very principled position on this declaration and vote in support of its text. And also, I would like to raise the issue. I began to speak about it, and please let me to continue. And the issue concerns the occupied territories of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. As I have mentioned in my previous intervention, the inseparable and integral parts of territories of Georgia and Moldova and Ukraine are currently occupied by the Russian Federation. This has been acknowledged by all main international global actors. As I have said, United Nations, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the Council of Europe, European Union, and many others. Also, I would like to say that several judgments have been delivered by some of the most authoritative judiciaries, such as the European Court of Human Rights, such as the International Criminal Court, which found, for instance, in case of Georgia, that brutal, systemic violations of fundamental human rights have taken place on the occupied territories of Georgia. Moreover, recently, the International Criminal Court has convicted several representatives of the Russian occupation regime on the occupied territory of Georgia for committing the international military crimes and crimes against humanity. Also, there are dozens of UN declarations which confirm the facts of ethnic cleansing of ethnic Georgians on occupied territories of Georgia. So, after all the battles on all major political, international political... Yes.
Si puede ir redondeando porque en honor a la apertura le hemos dado la palabra, pero hay miembros de la mesa que quieren opinar también.
So I'll be trying to be brief. So as I have said, after all the major battles on all major political and judicial fora has been lost, I'm afraid that now the strategy of the Russian Federation is to shift focus to the international networks of cities and municipalities. And in order to pursue its illegal policy agenda with regard to the occupied territories of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. And this strategy is very vividly exposed by the fact that several occupied cities of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, such as Sukhumi of Georgia, such as Tiraspol of Moldova, such as Sevastopol and Donetsk of Ukraine, are currently listed as members and are represented by the illegal and illegitimate occupation regimes in the Eurasia section of the UCLG. I'm confident that neither the leadership nor the members of this organization will allow the UCLG to be used as a safe harbor for blatant violations of the founding principles of international law, of the Charter of the United Nations. And I want to call the presidency of the UCLG to state in clear-cut terms that it supports the territorial integrity of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, that it does not recognize the illegal and illegitimate occupations of the territories of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, and that the occupation regimes operating in territories of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine have absolutely no stance, absolutely no position within the framework of the UCLG. And also, I would like to call upon the presidency of the UCLG to work together and to take every possible and necessary measures in order to ensure removal of the Russian occupation regimes in the territories of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine from the membership of the Eurasia section of the UCLG. Thank you.
Bueno, tiene la palabra el señor Pablo Jurado. Les voy a pedir que tratemos de encontrar un equilibrio entre la brevedad y la importancia, porque Metrópolis va a empezar dentro de muy poco la reunión y por lo tanto vamos a tener que liberar el lugar. Así que les pido que sean lo más breve posible.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Vamos a hacer lo más concreto posible. Hace un año, cuando estábamos reunidos, recibimos esa sorprendente noticia de que horas antes se había presentado el problema entre Rusia y Ucrania. Y yo había manifestado que no conozco alcaldes, no conozco prefectos, gobernadores, es decir, no conozco autoridades locales que hayan declarado guerras a nadie, sino más bien nuestro nivel siempre ha estado preocupado en la búsqueda de la paz. Y es eso justamente lo que nos convoca hoy, y se ha hecho referencia a que respaldemos un comunicado oficial llamando a la pacificación del mundo. Cuando nosotros hacemos referencia de manera general a que Rusia es el que declara la guerra y el que agrede a Ucrania, estamos siendo muy generales y estamos incorporando a todo un pueblo, y todo un pueblo no está de acuerdo con eso. Yo considero que debemos diferenciar entre los políticos que toman esas decisiones, que tienen un nivel jerárquico, y los políticos que estamos en nuestros espacios, en los municipios o en las ciudades y en las regiones, y nosotros no tenemos nada que ver en ese tema. Por eso, yo invito a hacer el análisis solicitado por el compañero alcalde de Kazán, en el sentido de utilizar adecuadamente la terminología, porque nosotros somos un conglomerado, insisto, y lo que los padres hacen no tenemos necesariamente culpa a los hijos. Y qué bueno que hoy esta familia esté liderada por una mujer. Y considero que esos valores y esas virtudes de una mujer sensible como siempre, humana como siempre, también nos conducirá a tomar la mejor decisión, en el sentido de utilizar los términos que no vayan a herir susceptibilidades. En mi país dicen que los hijos, así hagan la sombra al mismo diablo, no dejan de ser hijos. Y nosotros, como alcaldes, como autoridades locales y regionales, merecemos la misma consideración todas y todos de parte de esta dirigencia. Por lo tanto, yo quiero convocar a que si se pueden incluir términos que sean menos generalizados y más bien sean puntuales, sería obviamente lo más adecuado. Esta mañana, este viernes, este fin de este retiro, ha estado alimentado de un montón de matices. Hemos escuchado letras de poetas, hemos escuchado letras de poetisas, y es que nosotros dentro del Pacto para el Futuro estamos hablando de personas, estamos hablando de planeta y estamos hablando de gobiernos. Y cuando estamos hablando de personas, hablamos de eso, de seres humanos, que como usted dijo, señora presidenta, haciendo referencia a una connotada poetisa, somos eso, ni más ni menos. Somos seres humanos. Yo quiero convocar a que nos defendamos entre nosotros, entre este nivel. Los gobernantes que allá arriba toman decisiones equivocadas, que respondan obviamente con su conciencia y respondan al mundo por qué toman esas decisiones para afectar a los seres humanos. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Tiene la palabra el alcalde Salga.
Thank you very much, President. Greetings to members of the presidency. To me, seeing into this declaration, it should seek to address the crisis that we are facing in the world. Oh, okay. sorry. I'm saying, looking into the declaration, what the declaration it should seek to achieve. It should seek to achieve three basic principles, as far as I'm concerned. The principle in declaring our unhappiness of the war and wars that are taking place in the world. For instance, it will be very difficult for me to support declaration of this nature because this declaration doesn't speak to people of Palestine, whom they have been looking into the bodies such as these ones to take a stand on the situations in which they have been facing. Now, it is very dangerous to take a declaration that focuses only on one area, whereas there are many atrocities that are taking place over the world. Now, I'm seeing a danger on this declaration. I'm seeing an association and a movement that throws itself into a political mud that has not been created by itself. And there's a danger. There's a big danger and risk that the movement it need to be always careful of. It will be very good, movements such as this one, because you've got member municipalities in everywhere, in each and every corner in the globe. And in that globe, you've got many things that are happening to women and children. And it will be very dangerous for a movement to take a particular view over a particular matter. What we will suggest is that the movement, let it take a helicopter view and declaration on its unhappiness on what is happening. Let me tell you, be quite frank and open. If you don't act like a magnet, because the movement, it must act like a magnet that pulls almost everybody into the center, in driving the change that the movement has taken a decision to drive. And that change is to represent the interest of member municipalities and communities that are at the victims of political differences that are happening in society. Now, if we can't distinguish and differentiate that, the likelihood of declaration of this nature is going to throw the movement into some problems. And that is why, to me, President, is that this declaration, its intention, I think the Secretary General have shared my views in terms of how we could coin it into a manner that we must be seized as a movement trying to pull all those that I know. One, President, with no doubt, if you take a stand and simultaneously and make a call, you won't be listened by any other person anywhere else, because the interpretation will say you have taken a particular position at a particular point, which I think, to me, it is not going to help the movement. Thank you very much.
Okay. ¿O quieres intervenir? Sí. Hecho. Si me permiten, voy a seguir dando la palabra, pero antes quería, recogiendo algunas cuestiones que se han planteado acá y partiendo de la base que estamos todos contra la guerra y todos a favor de la paz, y entendiendo que no es sano para esta organización tomar partido por otra cosa que no sea la vida humana, propondría, pongo a consideración, dejar el título de la declaración tal como está. En el texto de la declaración, sacar la referencia específica a Ucrania y agregar al final una frase que diga más o menos: "It's our considered opinion that in a world with deepening levels of inequality, hunger and poverty, our limited resources should be better employed to address these socioeconomic challenges." Esa es la, recogiendo lo que se está diciendo, una primera aproximación que querríamos proponer. Continúo dando la palabra y les pido que sean muy breves. ¿Me había pedido tú?
Thank you very much. The moment that we are standing on is a moment of inflection and a moment of importance. And as local leaders, we understand what we do is both impacted and reflected in the decisions in our nation states. That's what we've been discussing here this week, and that's what we will continue to discuss as local leaders. However, the call to action or the statement that is made here talks about the impacts to our communities. As the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the third largest group of Ukrainians that live outside of the country, excluding Russia and Ukraine, reside in our country. So the impact to community cannot be downplayed from the very smallest to the largest community. For that reason, I think the last sentence that was added speaks to the need to continue to support communities. We have the words displayed around this room: people, planet, and government, and those are so interlinked. But the impact to our local communities and the impact to all of us, regardless of where we reside, is because we have the need to provide quality of life, the enduring support of our communities, and the people with whom we have these discussions. I appreciate the delicate nature of the conversations that we're having here today, and I empathize with those leaders that live in other countries that have different realities than we do. However, today is a date that is significant, and for that reason, it would be important for us to make the statement on this day. History is comprised of dates that we must remember, and we must act accordingly. So for that reason, I appreciate the addition. I also support the need to talk about peace and solidarity and making this declaration today.
Carlos Martínez ha pedido la palabra a través de Zoom. Carlos, cuando quieras.
Sí, buenos días y disculparme porque he tenido que ausentarme para las labores propias de todos los que estamos aquí sentados, ¿no? Pero he querido continuar a través de la red para poder seguir participando en algo que creo que es clave y fundamental para nosotros, ¿no? Lo decía el anterior compareciente, ¿no? La anterior intervención, los símbolos son claves, ¿no? Porque de lo simbólico también se genera la fortaleza de la unidad y del compromiso, ¿no? Y la visualización de un aniversario como el que estamos, CGLU tiene que tener el compromiso claro y firme de romper con la equidistancia. No es lo mismo la víctima que el agresor. Y, por tanto, ratificar nuestro compromiso con el paz y el diálogo, ¿no? A lo largo del día de ayer hablábamos de que CGLU es una organización pura. Hoy hemos visto que, además de pura, tiene alma. Se ha hablado, como decía Pablo, ¿no? De filosofía, se ha hablado de poesía. Pero también tenemos la obligación de ser una organización comprometida y fundamentalmente útil, ¿no? Y creo que la declaración que hoy se presenta, si bien es cierto que tiene lo simbólico de Ucrania, creo que es bueno, ¿no? Que el compromiso lo hagamos extensivo, ¿no? Al llamamiento a la paz en todos los rincones del mundo. Eso no quita, ¿no? Para que al hacer extensivo la paz en todos los rincones del mundo y el diálogo en todos los rincones del mundo, no tengamos que entender que el aniversario de Ucrania tiene que estar ahí, ¿no? Tiene que formar el eje fundamental de la propia declaración, ¿no? Y eso no quita, ¿no? Para que no tengamos posicionamientos en favor de la paz y en contra de la guerra en Palestina, en el Sáhara, en Latinoamérica, en la violencia, en el propio Europa o en Eurasia. Creo que el compromiso con la paz y el diálogo es un compromiso que se extiende a nivel internacional en esta organización y es la base fundamental sobre la que estamos trabajando. Pero no podemos olvidar lo simbólico de la fecha en la que estamos haciendo esta reunión y no podemos ignorar, ¿no?, la necesidad que tenemos de alzar la voz en un momento tan importante a nivel internacional como estamos viviendo, ¿no? Por tanto, yo apoyo plenamente la propuesta que ha puesto encima de la mesa nuestra presidenta, porque creo que es la que realmente fija el compromiso sereno y serio de nuestra organización, haciendo un llamamiento claro al mundo. No podemos olvidar que somos la única organización que de forma unánime ya ha hecho 2 llamamientos de estas características con una condena clara a la violencia en todos los puntos del planeta, ¿no? No rompamos esa unanimidad e intentemos respaldar y alzar la mira en un llamamiento que creo que es franco y sincero en favor del diálogo y en favor de la paz en Ucrania y en todos los rincones del mundo.
Muchas gracias, Carlos. Jan.
I've been listening to the discussion, and I fully understand that things like this are very delicate. On the other hand, my inspiration has always been being international, being the mayor of The Hague, international city of peace and justice. That, just like my colleague said from Salga, let's try and find a way that we condemn all the situation of war and tragedy as usual, but on the other hand, today, and we did so last year, today, and it's an historic moment, today, I think the situation in Ukraine deserves our attention. And I would very much ask, because I know it's delicate, and we have to be balanced, and we are local leaders, and we're not going to condemn people. If we condemn, then we condemn national governments, but that's not the wording. I fully support the suggestion that Carolina made, and so that the declaration is a little bit modified to help it to get it accepted. Because please, dear colleagues, today, having been together in the former presidency last year, February, this year again, I think we deserve to peace in the world to send a sign today.
Konya.
Teşekkür ediyorum Sayın Başkan. Ben de deklarasyon teklifini ve konuşmaları dinleyince çok önceden başlayan ve günümüze de devam eden İsrail'in Filistin'de yaptıklarını hatırlamadan edemiyorum. Yükselci, kapsayıcı, kucaklayıcı ve barışın yanında olan bir aile. O yüzden tüm dünya üzerindeki benzer olaylarını üzerine fokuslanmamız gerekiyor. Barışın Ukrayna'da, Filistin'de ve dünya üzerindeki benzer her yerde bir an önce gerçekleşmesini yürekten diliyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Bueno, creo que nadie pidió, ¿no?
El alcalde de
Peter, short, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to remind us that we normally address the nation states to be more sustainable, to be more peaceful, and so on. And now we have a declaration of the United Nations General Assembly, which is 40 hours old. And this should be our standard. I think we cannot be behind the UN General Assembly in a way. And so we have to recognize that they made a clear statement with 32 abstentions and 7 votes against it.
Segunda vuelta. Bueno, Carola.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to underline what Jan was saying, because 1 year ago, a lot of us met in Sevilla, and then we all were in shock, because then it was the big war started in Ukraine. And then we made a statement to ask for peace and solidarity already then. And I think that, as Jan was saying, Ukraine deserves a statement today. It's the 1 year anniversary of this war against Ukraine. And then we must stand up for Ukraine today. We can't do anything else. It's very important, I think. It's also symbolic towards the people of Ukraine, but also towards other people around the world who are living in the circumstances of war. So please, I do agree upon what Jan was saying. Ukraine deserve our support today. Thank you.
Bien, voy a resumir, ¿verdad? Este es un tema importante porque se trata de la paz y, como decíamos, no deberíamos tomar otro partido que por la paz. Y por otro lado, tratando de recoger todas las sensibilidades del equipo de presidencia, la fecha es una fecha importante. Y por otro lado, la paz es necesaria en todas partes y hay conflictos, lamentablemente, en muchas partes del mundo. Por lo tanto, reitero la propuesta de que el título permanezca tal como está. En el título se hace referencia a la fecha. Y en el cuerpo del texto, sacar la referencia específica a Ucrania y agregar la frase que dice que, en nuestra opinión, los recursos que son limitados deberían destinarse a combatir la pobreza y la injusticia. Creo que con esto nos apartaríamos del territorio de la neutralidad, en el que no creo que debamos estar, y estaríamos del lado de la paz contra la guerra, sin dejar de reconocer una fecha dolorosa en la historia. Entonces, esa es la propuesta. Si en el equipo de presidencia estamos de acuerdo, la daría por aprobada. Muchas gracias. Bueno. And secondly, we have membership issues, isn't it? Do you want to explain it?
Yes. No, I just wanted, and I will be really quick because we are being very unfair to the Metropolis board that is starting now. It has been on the table of the presidency. It has been tabled before. This issue that the representative of Georgia has raised about the mentioning of territories that are not acknowledged as nations by the international agreements and law as part of the list of membership of our Eurasian section. I think it would be wise not to open a debate here, President. We are a federation of federation, and all parts of the federation are free to interpret their own membership and to express the membership of those that have requested membership according to them. However, as World Organization, what we have traditionally done is to only acknowledge in the documents of the World Organization and in the membership of the World Organization those memberships that are according to international law and practices. This is what we have traditionally done. In many other cases, we continue to do. So according to the Secretariat, this is not a debate, and this does not interfere with the independence of parts of the Federation.
Estamos de acuerdo, ¿verdad? Bien. Bueno, muy bien. Bueno, hemos llegado al final de esta reunión. Adelante, adelante. Sí, claro.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Queridos amigos et amigas, je parlais en français. Tout d'abord, je dois exprimer toutes mes condoléances et notre solidarité avec les peuples en Turquie et en Syrie, et aussi toute nos solidarités avec toutes les victimes des guerres dans le monde entier. Moi, seulement, je veux évoquer deux événements en 2-3 minutes qui auront lieu cette année. 2 événements régionaux à caractère continental. Le premier, il aura lieu le 29 et le 30 mai à Tandil, en Argentine, avec bien sûr le soutien de FLACMA Mecos Ciudades. C'est le forum régional des villes intermédiaires de CGLU. Il aura comme thème principal, c'est les villes intermédiaires comme territoire de talent, ouvrir de nouvelles perspectives pour l'emploi. Et bien sûr, 2 thèmes importants, 2 axes importants seront débattus. C'est les systèmes alimentaires durables, résilients, inclusifs, et aussi la transformation digitale. Et ce sera aussi l'opportunité de mettre en œuvre des bases de création d'un laboratoire des villes intermédiaires des talents à Tandil. Donc ça, c'est 1. 2, un forum dans la zone méditerranéenne. La Méditerranée regroupe 3 continents, donc l'Afrique, l'Europe et l'Asie. Et ça va être le 22-23 juin à Tanger au Maroc. Donc c'est la MEDCOP Climat. Donc c'est le forum méditerranéen de climat, donc des territoires, des régions et des villes. Et bien sûr, c'est un espace de dialogue entre la COP 27 et la COP 28, et bien sûr des thèmes importants liés au changement climatique, tels que l'eau, l'énergie, système alimentaire, résilience, etc., qui auront lieu, bien sûr, le 22-23. Je remercie Madame la Secrétaire Générale pour l'appui de cet événement. Il y aura bien sûr d'autres réseaux de la Global Task Force qui seront avec nous. Vous êtes les bienvenus au Maroc, à Tanger, le 22-23 juin prochain. Merci beaucoup.
Johnny Araya tiene una invitación.
Gracias, Presidenta. Yo también quería aprovechar ya estos últimos minutos para informarles a todos los miembros de la Presidencia y a los que nos acompañan sobre una cumbre latinoamericana que vamos a tener, que está organizando FLACMA y que queremos que participen todas las redes latinoamericanas como parte de este proceso unitario que hemos venido desarrollando. Y es una cumbre que se va a desarrollar la primera semana de noviembre en República Dominicana. Esperaríamos, ojalá, que nuestra secretaria general nos pueda acompañar, nuestra presidenta nos pueda acompañar, y quedan invitados los miembros de otras regiones del mundo a que puedan enviar alguna delegación a República Dominicana. Nos sentiríamos muy complacidos de poder tenerlos con nosotros y dejar hecha una propuesta que desde Durban había quedado planteada, y es la posibilidad de que podamos celebrar el primer buró de ejecutivo el año entrante, en el mes de abril, en la ciudad de San José de Costa Rica. Nosotros quisiéramos poder revivir esa propuesta, así es que la dejamos hecha a la mesa para que podamos en los próximos días tomar una decisión y poder nosotros tener certeza de que vamos a empezar a trabajar en esa reunión del buró. Muchas gracias, Presidenta.
Bueno, ahora sí estaríamos concluyendo la reunión. Felicitar, creo que unánimemente, a Emilia y en Emilia a todo el equipo de CGLU que ha dejado todo. Y bueno, agradecer a todas y a todos la participación que ha sido hecha con tanta profundidad y con tanto corazón. Y bueno, nos encontramos en junio presencialmente de vuelta en Bruselas y mientras tanto mantenernos en contacto y seguir trabajando, porque ya hemos demostrado que no hay distancia que nos pueda separar. Muchas gracias.
A housekeeping message. Housekeeping, and with my sincere apologies to our colleagues of Metropolis, and thank you, Jordi, Secretary General, for your patience. Those that are due to participate in the Metropolis Board, which is important and is being held here, we will start at 2:30. And thank you again, colleagues, for your understanding.